My name is Matthew Leffler. I am the armchair attorney, a lawyer and a law professor, and I'm going to break down the most important legal case in the country. There is a big event happening tomorrow, and I want you to be aware of it and to understand it. Now, let me be very clear. If you're on this platform looking for cool memes, interesting AI-generated content, or cat videos, you've come to the wrong place. You shouldn't watch this video. This is about the law, the Constitution, the separation of powers. You are in the wrong place. This isn't for you. But if you do want to understand this case, if you do want to understand how our democracy is changing in unique and profound ways, there's only one thing that I ask of you, and that is not to engage with this video, though that would be appreciated. It's not to like and subscribe. Again, that would be interesting. What I ask is if you listen to this video and you find anything of value, send it to someone. Send it to somebody. Maybe reshare it, because democracy requires your understanding. If you don't understand things, you're never going to be able to make any impact. Now, with that preamble out of the way, let me tell you a little bit about a case that is set for oral argument before the Federal Circuit tomorrow morning, July 31st at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. In that oral argument is a critical issue of our Constitution and of our democracy. Maybe you've heard about the tariffs. Maybe you haven't, but let me give you a little bit of context. A couple of months ago, President Trump, utilizing a very interesting law called IEEPA, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977, had a thing called Liberation Day and associated tariffs across the entire globe, unilaterally without the advice and consent of Congress, or so we are led to believe. And that has started an international trade war. Every single day we see new deals being advertised or discussed and big victories for our country. But what I want to understand, what I want to unpack, is something totally different but somewhat related. You have to understand the way that our government functions is not to function on emergencies, not to just say something's a catastrophe and then utilize all this incredible power. But that's what we have. We have three branches of government. Think of it like a three-legged stool. Each leg is the exact same length. At least that's how it was designed to function. Whether that functions that way today or not is up for debate. But what we have seen with this IEEPA, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977, was our Congress, both the House and the Senate, giving the United States president, doesn't matter which political party, the ability to say an emergency is taking place and then to utilize that power, the emergency power, which is vast and encompassing so many things, to then start what we now see as a trade war. Now, that was not the end of it. Simply making an executive order and following the letter of the law with IEEPA doesn't mean the story ends. There's a case right now called V.O.S. selections. It began in the Court of International Trade, an Article 3 court in the United States. And in that moment, back in end of May, when V.O.S. selections sued the Trump administration under IEEPA, saying, hey, we don't think Congress has the power to give up all of its ability to regulate commerce the way that we've seen here. And we also don't think that this is the correct way to utilize presidential power. That lower court, that district level court, agreed. And for a single day, all of the tariffs in the United States that were put in place on Liberation Day were frozen in time, paused, stayed, pending the appeals. Well, the appeals came fast. The appeals came furious. Within less than a day, the Federal Circuit, the appellate level court, issued its own injunction saying, hey, lower court, slow down. I understand that you have questions of the legality of this executive order, but maybe we should take a beat. Let's have a hearing. Let's have some motions. Let's have some briefs filed. and that appellate brief cycle is done. Everyone has filed their briefs. There have been some amicus briefs. These are things called friends of the court. It's when someone who's not a party to the litigation says, hey, I have opinions on this. Let me give you my opinions. Well, that's all done. And now we're setting up for this hearing, which is tomorrow in less than 24 hours on July 31st, 2025 at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. It will be a live stream hearing on this case. I will link the YouTube link to that live stream somewhere in the notes of this video that I'm making right now. But this is the thing that I want to get you to understand. Now, we just unpacked like the litigation, the history, the kind of the procedures that are happening. I want you to understand the nuts and bolts of this. There's this idea in the Constitution that each branch is separate and they're able to check and balance the others, that you can't give your power to one branch and then kind of abdicate your responsibility. This is the fundamental question that we have wrestled with for a very long time, a very long time. This is not just IEEPA, this is the Trading with the Enemies Act, a World War I law that was in place, but this is not new. This is decades, if not hundreds of years in the making. What we have watched unfold is the Senate and the House, the legislative branch, give up power to the executive. Now, we want the executive to have the power to react in an emergency. If someone attacks us, we want the federal government, we want the executive branch to do something. We need them to do something. But if everything is an emergency, is anything an emergency? So the ability to regulate commerce globally, that rests in the hands of the House and the Senate. They're the ones that make the policy that then the executive branch, first has to sign and agree to, but then they have to enforce it. IEEPA is different. IEEPA says if the president, whether it's Republican or Democrat, says we're in under emergency, they get to have all these vast powers, and those powers do not leave you when you leave the office. The office maintains those powers. It doesn't just leave with the person who is the former president. It goes to anybody. Now, you can, in Congress, you can come back and say, well, maybe we didn't really think it's an emergency. They can, under IEEPA, they can work together, the House and the Senate, and pass essentially a bill saying, hey, we don't think that this is an emergency. And then the president can either sign that or veto it, same as a normal piece of legislation. If the president doesn't think the Congress is right, the president believes an emergency continues, then it means that it goes back to the House and the Senate. And they have to have 2/3 majority, 2/3 for the House and the Senate to override the emergency. Now, if you understand our modern political sphere, it's hyper-politicized. Democrats support Democrats, Republicans support Republicans. They don't look at the institution that they're a part of necessarily. They look at the party, look at the logo on the hat, they look at the badge on the side of the lapel. This is different than our founders anticipated, I would think. Is it bad or good? I don't know, but it's different than it was before. Now, as you sit here, and I continue to tell you, this is the wrong place. You're just finding this now. We're talking about IEEPA. Here's the rub. What powers can Congress give away? Can Congress give away the power to declare war? Probably. They kind of have. When was the last time our House and Senate have declared a war? I believe it was when Germany declared war on us after we declared war on Japan for bombing us at Pearl Harbor. Then we declared war on Germany. That was the last time, I believe, we have declared war on a single country. Everything else is a police action, as they say colloquially. How much power should the federal government have? How much power should the executive branch have? This is why this moment in time is so important. So often in law, we look, and technology and innovation for that matter, we look and we say, it will never be this way. It'll never do what you say it's going to do. It's not going to go that direction. Then there's this weird point of inflection. Then you fast forward, And the answer becomes, well, we've always done it this way. This is how it's always been. Why do you now complain about it? You had a chance to complain before. You had a chance to voice your opinions before. Here we are now, in the interim, the middle period. And this is not normal yet. Now, we have had many emergencies on the economic side. These emergencies, on average, last about a decade-long emergency. We are going to watch something truly remarkable unfold tomorrow, July 31st at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will also say this, whatever happens at the federal circuit, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This case will absolutely, unequivocally, without any ambiguity, go to the Supreme Court of the United States. And what will happen at the Supreme Court of the United States on this issue? Can the Trump administration or any administration say we are under an emergency and then do tariffs without any other feedback from anyone else? Do we live in a country where a single person can say every single thing you will buy will cost more by my act alone? And unless I have a supermajority to stop me, no one can stop me. This was not how the framers and our founders intended things to work. I promise you that. Read the Federalist Papers, read the Anti-Federalist Papers. But let me be clear. I'm not trying to be political. Democrats have done this too. Democrats were very happy to utilize the incredible powers of the executive branch in times of emergency. Both parties have their hands in this. We're just seeing this one case now. There's been many before, but this one case, this case of V.O.S. selections versus Trump, this case is incredibly important. I do not know the outcome at the federal appellate court. I don't know what will happen tomorrow. I will watch, I will comment. I hope you do too. I've looked at the YouTube link. There's like 11 people that have said, I want to be notified when this thing goes live. That should be thousands, hundreds of thousands of people should watch this. I'm telling you, this is really important stuff. But maybe it's not. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this isn't as big of a deal as I think that it is. I have a feeling that I'm not wrong. I have a feeling this is very, very important. But it will go to the Supreme Court. And what will the Supreme Court do? That's the big question. And I would say this. I think that the tariffs and the use of IEEPA by Trump, and anyone for that matter, will be upheld. I really do. I think it's a power that the Congress has to delegate their authority, which I wish they didn't do, but they have other priorities that are outside of creating policy generally. And when it goes to the Supreme Court, whether it'll be 6-3 or 5-4, I don't think it'll be particularly close. I think that it gets upheld. But you, my fellow Americans, you will get a chance to hear this. You'll get a chance to understand the arguments. Why should a executive branch, the president, get the power to say this is an emergency? Everything costs more. I can imagine this. You could be the president and declare an emergency and have one company or maybe one type of thing and say, I don't want that in my country anymore. I'm going to make the tariff for that specific thing 5,000%. Whatever the number is, you can do anything. Because if anything can be an emergency, then everything is an emergency. I use this, and I'll leave you with this analogy. Power is like gravity. It is inescapable. It is accretive. It coalesces. When power is given away, it is almost never given back. It is never taken back unless someone really fundamentally believes that they should not have given that power up. Power is like an accretion disk around a forming sun. That star will pull in more and more matter. Power begets power, and there is no way you get off this ramp. This is what happens. So, tomorrow, as we mentioned, we will see an oral argument presented by V.O.S. Selections, a business. I think they're out of New York. They do beverages, I don't know. But they have become the case going forward to the federal appellate court. They will argue whether or not these tariffs will stay in place, whether the federal government has overreached with its power, whether Congress even has the ability to give away the power that it has with IEEPA. And whatever happens there, the next phase is going straight to the Supreme Court of the United States. And it is very rare that someone says, oh, this case will go before SCOTUS. Sometimes you can tell. This is a case that I think you can tell. This will go before the Supreme Court of the United States, and they will wrestle with the biggest topics that our founders struggled with mightily. They did not all agree. They did not all agree. How much power should the executive have? How much power should the legislative branch have? And what level of give and take is permissible under the Constitution? If you like this outcome, the tariffs that we're seeing, understand that maybe the ends doesn't justify the means. Whatever happens with President Trump or others, they will leave office someday, and there will be someone else in place who inherits all of this power. All of this power. And it could be your worst political nightmare that has this power. And you will say, I wish we would have said something. I wish someone would have told us. Maybe there was a way we could have stopped it, because, as I mentioned before, we start in a place where we say, it'll never happen. It'll never happen. Something takes place, time passes, and we look back and we say it's always been this way. It's that normalization period that I'm curious about. It is this period that I'm curious about. So if you're interested in separation of powers in the U.S. Constitution, tomorrow is going to be a really interesting day. You'll get the chance to hear both sides argue why or why not this thing should happen. And then you get to watch the process continue to unfold. It is going to be remarkable. And I do believe this, that any of my fellow Americans have the ability and the capacity and the aptitude to understand these complex issues. Do not think that this is purely a partisan or political issue. This is everything. This is why I did this video, which again, if I play my cards right, no one should be listening or watching at this point. There's no reason. No one wants to learn about IEEPA. People want to learn about cats. People want to learn about AI making cool, fun things, and they want to see a great meme. This, unfortunately, is not a meme, maybe not yet. But if you have a passion for understanding how things work, why they work, and where things are going, maybe this was right up your alley. So, thanks for tuning in. I hope you check out the hearing tomorrow. It'll be far more interesting than what I have to say. And I will likely see you again at some point as we continue to cover interesting legal cases. Until next time, I'm Matthew Leffler, the armchair attorney, real-life lawyer, and law professor who has a passion for unpacking complicated legal topics and making them accessible to people who have the curiosity. As always, stay curious, and we'll see you next time.